Hello everyone. This class will be an introduction to respiratory system. The main functions of respiratory system is to extract oxygen from atmosphere, to deliver it to tissues and to take carbon dioxide from the tissues and discharge it to the atmosphere. The entire respiration can be divided into two main divisions, the external respiration and internal respiration. External respiration deals with the absorption of oxygen and removal of carbon dioxide from the body as a whole, whereas internal respiration is utilization of the oxygen and production of carbon dioxide by cells and gaseous exchange between the cells and their fluid medium. Tracheobronchial tree, that is also called as Webel's lung model. This was introduced by E.R. Webel in 1963. Between the trachea and alveolar sac, the air passage is divided 23 times. The trachea is designated as a generation 0. The first two major divisions of trachea constitute the first generation and so on. Atria or the alveolar sac is the 23rd generation, that is the last generation. From the functional point of view, the tracheobronchial tree can be divided into two major zones. One is conducting zone and respiratory zone. Conducting zone is the first 16th generation of bronchioles, which forms the conducting zone of air, where there will be no presence of alveoli. So no exchange of gases takes place here. This area forms anatomical dead space. The 16th generation bronchioles are called as terminal bronchioles. Respiratory zone. On and from a 17th generation, few alveoli are seen. Here exchange of gases takes place, so called respiratory bronchioles. Some of the advantages of the division: these multiple divisions increase the total cross-sectional area of airways from 2.2 to 11,800 centimeters square in the alveoli. As a result of the velocity of airflow in small airways is greatly reduced, allowing better gaseous exchange. The alveoli are surrounded by pulmonary capillaries. So here you can see how trachea divides into the principal bronchi, then non-respiratory bronchioles, respiratory bronchioles, and alveolar ducts. And till 16th generation, it is a non-respiratory bronchiole, and after 17th generation, they are called as respiratory units, which includes respiratory bronchioles and alveolar ducts. You can see the total cross section area from the trachea from 2.5 centimeters square, it increases up to 10 raised to 4, that is almost 10,000 centimeters square. The air in the alveoli is separated from the blood in the pulmonary capillaries by wall called respiratory membrane. Basically, it consists of alveolar wall and capillary wall. The following are the 6 layers of the respiratory membrane. The first layer is a layer of surfactant lining the alveolus, then alveolar epithelium, then the basal lamina of the alveolar epithelial cells, then a thin interstitial space between alveolar epithelium and capillary membrane, then basal membrane of endothelial cells, then a capillary endothelial membrane. So these are the different layers of the alveolar capillary membrane. From the alveolar membrane, this is interstitium and this is the capillary endothelial walls. And through this, the exchange of gases usually occurs. In the alveolar membrane, you can see the layer of surfactant, then the layer of alveolar epithelium 2. Then after that, you can see basal lamina of alveolar epithelial cells, then layer of interstitium, then basal membrane of endothelial cells, then layer of capillary endothelial cells, then plasma and RBCs. Despite these large number of layers, the overall thickness of the membrane is in some areas is as little as 0.2 micrometer. That is, average is around 0.6 micrometer, except where there are cell nuclei. The total surface area of respiratory membrane is about 70 meters square in the normal adult human male, which facilitates the rapidity of respiratory exchange of oxygen and carbon dioxide. There are about 300 million alveoli in the two lungs. The factors which affect the rate of diffusion are V is equal to A divided by I, A divided by T into D into P1 minus P2, where T is thickness of the membrane. The thickness increases in pulmonary edema and fibrosis of the lungs. A is surface area of the membrane. The surface area decreases in pneumonectomy and in emphysema. The diffusion coefficient of the gas is the substance of the gas in the substance of the membrane. That is, a diffusion coefficient is directly proportional to the solubility of the gas and inversely proportional to the square root of molecular weight of gas. Then partial pressure difference between the gases of two sides is the P1 minus P2. Airway resistance. When air flows through the airways, there is a resistance to airflow which is referred as airway resistance. Normal value is around 1.5 to 2 centimeters of water per liter per second. Airway resistance can be given as a pressure difference between the atmosphere and the alveolar pressure in terms of centimeters of water divided by airflow, which is liter per second. Some of the factors affecting airway resistance are total cross-sectional area. The resistance to airflow is inversely related to the total cross-sectional area of the respiratory passage. Therefore, resistance to the airflow is high in the conducting zone, whereas it is low in the respiratory zone. And according to the Poiseuille's-Hagen formula, the relation between flow in a long narrow tube, the viscosity of the fluid, and the radius of the tube is the F, that is flow, is equal to pressure difference between point A and point B into pi divided by 8 into 1 by nu into r to the power of 4 divided by L, where F is flow and PA minus PB is pressure difference between two ends of the tube, mu is viscosity and L is length of the tube and r is radius of the tube. Since flow is equal to PA minus PB, where R is equal to resistance. So resistance will be is equal to 8 mu L pi R to the power 4. That is, R is directly proportional to the inversely proportional to the fourth power of R. Therefore, if the radius decreases by half, keeping the other factor constant, the resistance increases by 16 times. But this does not occur in our body because as the diameter of the airways is large, there is no difficulty in breathing. The type of the flow. Airway resistance is more in turbinal flow, that is during rapid inspiration, than in laminar flow or streamline flow, which occurs in quiet breathing. Some of the non-respiratory functions of the lung are: the main function of the respiratory system is, in general, is a gas exchange. Some of the non-respiratory function of the respiratory system includes the lung defense mechanism. The respiratory passages not only serve as a gas conduits but also humidify and cool or warm the inspired air to make it attain body temperature by the time it reaches the alveoli. Bronchial secretion contains secretory immunoglobulins, that is IgA, and other substances that help to resist infection and maintain mucosal integrity. Pulmonary epithelium contains an interesting group of protease activate receptors, that is PARs, which when activated triggers the release of prostaglandin E2, which in turn protect the epithelial cells. Pulmonary alveolar macrophages, which are called as PAMs, these cells come originally from the bone marrow. They are important component of the pulmonary defense mechanisms. They are actively phagocytic and ingest inhaled bacteria and small particles. They help in processing the inhaled antigens for immunological attack. They secrete substances that attract granulocyte to the lung as well as substances that stimulate granulocyte and monocyte formation in bone marrow. Prevents foreign body from reaching the alveoli. If the particles are more than 10 microns diameter, the hair in the nostrils strain out many of such particles and they settle down on the mucous membrane in the nose and pharynx. Particles between 2 to 10 micrometers, these particles when fall on the walls of the bronchi as air flow slows in smaller passages, initiates reflex bronchoconstriction and coughing. Thereby, particles are removed away from the lungs by ciliary escalatory action. If the particles are less than 2 microns, generally they reach alveoli where they are ingested by the macrophages. Then functions of pulmonary circulation. It acts as a reservoir for the left ventricle. If the LV output becomes transiently greater than the systemic venous return, the LV output can be maintained by drawing out blood stored in the pulmonary circulation. That is only for a few strokes. It acts as a role as a filter. Pulmonary circulation acts as a filter for many substances like fibrin clots, fat cells, detached cancer cells, and agglutinated RBCs. Fluid exchange, it is important for fluid exchange and drug absorption. Low pulmonary hydrostatic pressure tends to pull fluid from alveoli into pulmonary capillaries, thereby keeping the alveolar surface free from liquids. This facilitates the rapid entry of drugs into systemic circulation, which rapidly pass through the alveolar capillary membrane or barrier by diffusion. For example, anesthetic gases and aerosols. It has some metabolic and endocrine functions. Manufactures a surfactant for local use, which prevents the development of surface tension between the fluid lining the alveoli and the alveolar air. Substances synthesized or stored and released into the blood. For example, prostaglandins, especially prostaglandin E2 and prostaglandin 2 alpha, contain a fibrinolytic system that lyses clot in the pulmonary vessels. The lungs also activate one hormone in the pulmonary circulation. Lungs also activate one hormone in the pulmonary circulation, that is angiotensin 1 to angiotensin 2 in presence of angiotensin converting enzyme. This reaction occurs in the tissues also but prominent in lungs. Note that angiotensin 1 is inactive decapeptide, angiotensin 2 pressor aldosterone stimulating octapeptide. Large amounts of angiotensin converting enzyme is located on the endothelial cells of pulmonary capillaries. Angiotensin converting enzyme inactivates bradykinin. It helps in the removal of serotonin and norepinephrine, thereby reducing the amounts of vasoactive substances reaching the systemic circulation. However, many other vasoactive substances like epinephrine, dopamine, oxytocin pass through the lungs without being metabolized. Cartigenous syndrome. It is associated with immotile cilia, that is due to the congenital absence of axonal dynein. This leads to recurrent lung infection. Patients with this condition are infertile due to the lack of sperm motility. Alveoli, they are lined by two types of cells. Type 1, which flat cells which large cytoplasmic extension, whereas type 2 cells are granular pneumocytes that produce surfactant. So this is a brief introduction to respiratory system. Thank you.